Catherine's breasts ached. She was 4 hours overdue for pumping. Her uniform felt tight, damp patches forming despite the pads. Antoine, her 3-month-old baby, was with her Aunt Celeste across town in Tremé, probably sleeping peacefully, unaware his mother was slowly unraveling. She unlocked the suite. She began collecting glasses when a sound stopped her cold. A baby. Crying. Catherine followed the desperate wails to the bedroom. An infant, maybe 6 months old, lay alone in a portable crib, red-faced, screaming, clearly hungry. No nanny, no parent. "Where's your mama?" Catherine whispered, lifting the child. He was burning up, face soaked with tears. His cries intensified, and something primal took over. Her breasts leaked at the sound. This baby needed her. Right now, she shouldn't. God, she knew she shouldn't. But exhaustion and maternal instinct erased logic. Catherine sank into the velvet armchair, unbuttoned her uniform, and guided the baby to her breast. He latched immediately, desperately, like he'd been starving. Blessed silence filled the room. She exhaled, closed her eyes, and sang softly in Creole, a folk song her maman had taught her before Katrina took her. The door opened. Catherine's eyes snapped open. A man stood in the doorway, tall with mixed Creole features that could cut glass. He didn't stumble like the drunk guests. He moved like a predator in an expensive custom suit, eyes dark and ancient and dangerous. Etienne Rousseau. She'd seen his photo in the employee handbook, owner of the hotel, owner of half the French Quarter, king of New Orleans's underworld. He stared at her nursing his son. His expression shifted from confusion to shock, to something primal that made her blood run cold. "Explain. Now." His voice was gravel and honey mixed with barely controlled rage. Reality crashed down. Wrong suite, wrong baby. Fatal mistake. "Monsieur Rousseau, I'm so sorry. The baby was crying. The nanny was gone. Stop talking." Each step toward her was deliberate, measured. "Do you understand what you've done? It was an accident, I swear. In my culture, when a woman shares her milk with a child, she becomes laniapa, a sacred gift, more than family, more than blood." His voice dropped to something ancient and absolute. "My son has drunk from your body. That's a bond older than the church, older than the law." "I don't understand." "You will." He pulled out his phone. "Your name?" "Catherine Baptiste." "Where you live, your child's name, everything." Her hands shook as she covered herself, still holding his now sleeping son. 2 days later, Catherine would later recall, he appeared at my aunt's shotgun house in Tremé, then at the streetcar stop, then at my son's pediatrician in the 7th Ward. And when the Santini family's enforcers cornered me in the parking garage of Rouse's Market, Etienne's knife found their throats before I could breathe. "I told you," he'd whispered, wiping. "Blood on their shirts. You accepted Lagniapa. That makes you mine." Will Catherine escape the crime lord who claims her soul? Or will one moment of mercy bind her to his violent world forever? Keep watching to find out what happens next. Etienne crossed the room in 3 strides and lifted Laurent from Catherine's arms with a gentleness that contradicted everything about his presence. The baby didn't wake, milk-drunk and peaceful against his father's shoulder. Catherine's arms felt empty, cold. He pulled out his phone with his free hand, never taking his eyes off her. "Dominic, I need a complete background on Catherine Baptiste. Tremé address, probably section 8, everything, 10 minutes. He ended the call without waiting for confirmation. The silence stretched. Catherine's heart hammered against her ribs. She should run, apologize again, and leave. But her legs wouldn't move, pinned by the weight of his stare. "You work here how long?" His voice was controlled now, almost conversational, which somehow made it worse. 6 months, night shift cleaning. Hard work, overnight hours. He adjusted Laurent, patting the baby's back with practiced ease. "You have a child. Where's the father?" The question was a knife between her ribs. "Gone. He wanted me to give Antoine up for adoption." The words tasted like ash. Said a baby would ruin his future. Something flickered across Etienne's face. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping. Foolish man. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and Catherine watched his expression shift as he read. It was like watching shutters close over windows. Whatever humanity had briefly appeared vanished behind cold assessment. Tremé address, Section 8 housing, Community college dropout, social work, interesting choice. He read like he was reviewing a restaurant menu, clinical and detached. 3 jobs. Outstanding medical debt from your son's birth, substantial. Eviction notice filed last week. His eyes lifted to hers. You're drowning. Humiliation burned through her chest, hot and acidic. You have no right. I have every right now. He moved closer and she caught his scent, something expensive and woody with an undertone of danger she couldn't name. He extended Laurent toward her. Burp him. You started this. Finish it properly. Her hands moved automatically, taking the baby before her brain could protest. Laurent was warm, solid, real against her chest. She positioned him correctly, rubbing circles on his small back. The motion was soothing, familiar. She'd done this 1,000 times with Antoine. Laurent's mother? The question escaped before she could stop it. Is she dead? No emotion in his voice, flat as still water. Overdosed when he was 2 weeks old, heroin laced with fentanyl. He watched Laurent, not her. Someone's message to me. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Don't be. His gaze finally met hers, and what she saw there made her breath catch. Not grief, something colder, older. She was using long before she got pregnant. I tried to save her, gave her everything she needed to get clean. But my enemies... He stopped, jaw working. I won't fail my son. Not again. Not ever. Laurent burped, a small sound that broke the tension. Catherine felt the baby relax completely against her shoulder, trusting in a way that made her throat tight. The suite door opened without a knock. An older man entered, silver-haired, sharp-dressed, moving with the careful economy of someone who'd survived decades in a violent world. He took in the scene with knowing eyes and said nothing. Dominic. Etienne's voice shifted, became something else entirely. We need to discuss arrangements. They moved to the far side of the room, speaking in rapid Sicilian French patois that Catherine's high school French couldn't follow. But she caught words here and there. Lagniappe, protection, obligation. Dominic's tone was measured, reasoning. Etienne's responses were sharp, absolute. Finally, Etienne turned back to her. Laurent had fallen asleep again on her shoulder, completely at peace. Here's what happens now. Etienne's voice left no room for argument. You quit all 3 jobs. Excuse me? I'm hiring you, private wet nurse for Laurent. Catherine almost laughed. The absurdity of it, the audacity. That's not... people don't do that anymore. I do. He crossed his arms. You'll live in my garden district house, private quarters for you and your son. You'll nurse Laurent when needed, care for him, be compensated generously. $50,000 a year, plus all expenses. The number made her dizzy. That was more than her 3 jobs combined, more than she'd ever hoped to make without finishing her degree. You can't just purchase me. I'm not purchasing you. His eyes flashed. I'm fulfilling the Lagniappe bond. You gave my son something sacred, your milk, your body, your care. Now I provide for you. That's how this works. And if I refuse? His smile was cold, precise as a scalpel. Then you lose your apartment next week when you can't pay rent. Your car gets repossessed in 10 days. Your aunt loses her medication coverage when you default on the coinsurance. These are facts, not threats. I'm simply offering you a solution. Dominic stepped forward, his voice gentler than Etienne's. He's not wrong, Cher. You're in a bad way. Pride won't feed your baby. I need to think. You have until sunrise. Etienne handed her a business card, cream-colored with embossed lettering. That's my private number. Call with your answer. He carefully extracted Laurent from her arms, and this time she felt the loss acutely. The baby's warmth, his weight, the slight milk smell of him. Etienne settled his son against his shoulder with the easy competence of a man who'd learned fatherhood the hard way. Choose wisely, Catherine Baptiste. His use of her full name felt intimate, possessive. Your pride, or your son's, future. Then he was gone, Dominic trailing behind him like a well-dressed shadow. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a prison cell locking. Catherine stood alone in the presidential suite, surrounded by the debris of someone else's party, her uniform damp with milk, her mind racing. Dawn was breaking over Tremé when Catherine finally made it home. The shotgun house she shared with Aunt Celeste was shabby but clean, painted purple and green like her aunt insisted. For protection, she always said. Celeste was awake, rocking Antoine in the front room. She took one look at Catherine's face and said, "Sit. Tell me everything." So Catherine did. Every word, every moment, every impossible offer. "The Rousseau family?" Celeste's voice rose. "Catherine, they're criminals. That man has blood on his hands. We're about to be homeless, Tante." Catherine's voice cracked. "What choice do I have? The eviction notice is real. The medical bills are real. I can't keep drowning." Her aunt's expression softened. She set Antoine in his bassinet and pulled Catherine close. "That boy needs you. I saw it in how you described him looking at you. It's not about him, it's survival." "Is it?" Celeste touched her face with work-worn hands. "Or is it destiny? Sometimes the LAWA send us exactly where we need to be, Cher, even when the path looks dark." At 5:47 a.m., Catherine's fingers shook as she dialed the number on the card. He answered on the first ring. "I was hoping you'd call." Etienne's voice was warm, satisfied, like he'd known all along what her answer would be. "I accept, but I have conditions." "Name them." He sounded amused. "My aunt comes with us. Antoine stays in my room, not a separate nursery. And I'm not," she forced the words out, "I won't be anything else to you. This is business, professional, just feeding your son." The pause stretched so long she thought he'd hung up. "Agreed." His voice was silk over steel. "Be ready in 2 hours. I'll send a car." 2 hours? I need time to— 2 hours, Catherine. Pack what matters. Everything else I'll provide." The line went dead. Catherine stared at the phone, at the shabby purple walls of the only home she'd known since Katrina, at her sleeping son, at her aunt's knowing eyes. "What have I done?" she whispered. Celeste squeezed her hand. "What you had to. Now let's pack." The car that arrived was a black Mercedes S-Class with windows tinted so dark Catherine couldn't see inside. The driver, a young man with a Caribbean accent and kind eyes, introduced himself as Marcus and loaded their meager belongings with care that felt like pity. "Don't worry, miss," he said, securing Antoine's car seat. "Mr. Rousseau's house, it's real nice. You'll like it there." Catherine didn't answer, and Celeste sat beside her in the back seat, clutching her rosary and muttering prayers in Creole. Antoine babbled happily, unaware his entire life had just been sold. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? A transaction. Her body, her milk, her presence, all purchased for $50,000 and the promise of security. They drove through the French Quarter as the city woke up, past Jackson Square where artists were setting up, past Café du Monde with its line already forming, past the hotel where this had all started. Then into the Garden District, where the houses grew larger and the streets quieter, where old money lived behind gates and walls. The Mercedes turned through wrought iron gates that opened automatically. Catherine's breath caught. The estate sprawled before them like something from a history book. A restored antebellum mansion, 3 stories of white columns and wide galleries, surrounded by live oaks dripping with Spanish moss. The morning sun filtered through the branches, creating patterns of light and shadow on the circular drive. "Mother Mary," Celeste whispered, "this is where we're living?" Marcus smiled in the rearview mirror. "Mr. Rousseau don't do nothing small, ma'am." The front door opened before they reached it. An elderly black woman emerged, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun, her dress simple but expensive. She moved with the authority of someone who'd run this house for decades. "Welcome, welcome," her voice was warm, accented with the unique rhythm of New Orleans Creole. "I'm Miss Odette, been waiting for you all morning." She beamed at Antoine. "And this must be the baby. Oh, he's precious." Catherine found herself being ushered inside, still clutching Antoine, while Marcus and Miss Odette handled the bags. The interior was breathtaking, original heart pine floors polished to a honey glow, crystal chandeliers that caught the light, museum-quality antiques mixed seamlessly with contemporary comfort. It smelled like beeswax and fresh flowers. "Been waiting for someone to fill this wing," Miss Odette continued, leading them through a hallway lined with art that probably cost more than Catherine's entire life. House too quiet with just the boy and Monsieur Etienne. They entered the west wing. Miss Odette opened double doors with a flourish. The The suite was larger than Catherine's entire Treme house, a sitting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a courtyard garden. Beyond that, a bedroom with a four-poster bed draped in silk, an ensuite bathroom with a clawfoot tub deep enough to swim in, and next door, a nursery that looked like something from a magazine. Soft colors, expensive furniture, every possible comfort. "This is for you and your boy," Miss Odette said. "Miss Celeste, you're across the hall. Same setup, just smaller. Mr. Rousseau, he thought you might want your privacy." Celeste was already crying, touching the furniture like she couldn't believe it was real. "Where's Laurent?" Catherine's voice came out smaller than she intended. "Napping. Mr. Rousseau said to let you settle in first. He'll bring him by around 10 for his feeding." Miss Odette's expression softened. "I know this is all strange, Cher. But Mr. Rousseau, he's a good man. Complicated, but good, especially with that baby." After Miss Odette left, Catherine stood in the center of her new bedroom, Antoine on her hip, and tried to breathe through the panic. "This is wrong," she whispered. "This is all wrong." "Wrong?" Celeste appeared in the doorway. "Catherine, this is a palace. That bathroom alone. It's a cage, Tante. A beautiful cage, but still a cage. Then why does it have so many doors?" Her aunt touched her shoulder. "Give it time. Maybe this is exactly where the LWA wanted you." At precisely 10 o'clock, there was a soft knock. Catherine had just finished feeding Antoine when the door opened. Etienne entered carrying Laurent, and Catherine's breath caught. In daylight, dressed casually in dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up, he looked different, less dangerous, almost human. But his eyes, those eyes still held shadows. "He's been fussy," Etienne said without preamble. "I think he's hungry." Laurent was indeed fussing, his little face scrunched and red. The moment he saw Catherine, he reached for her, making urgent sounds. "Come here, baby." She settled into the rocking chair Miss Odette had positioned by the window, and Laurent latched immediately, desperate and relieved. The sensation was strange. Not her baby, but her body responded the same way. Etienne remained standing, watching. The intensity of his gaze made her skin prickle. "You can sit," she finally said. "You don't have to hover." He took the chair opposite her, long legs stretched out, completely at ease in a way that suggested he'd sat in this room before. "Miss Odette got you settled?" "Yes, it's very generous. It's adequate." He studied Laurent, not her. "He slept better last night than he has in weeks. I think he remembers you." "Babies don't remember like that, don't they?" His eyes finally met hers. "You're not staff, Catherine. I want that clear. You're Laurent's laniapa. That's different." There was that word again, that possessive terminology that made her simultaneously uncomfortable and something else she didn't want to examine. "What does that mean exactly, in practical terms?" "It means you eat with us. You join family dinners. You're not confined to this wing." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "It means Laurent is your responsibility, but you're not a servant. Understood?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Good. Dinner's at 7. Miss Odette's cooking. I expect you there." It wasn't a request. The days developed a rhythm. Catherine woke with Antoine, nursed Laurent at 8, then again at noon and 6 and before bed. Between feedings, she existed in a strange limbo, not quite guest, not quite employee, not quite prisoner. Etienne was gone most days, disappearing after breakfast to handle business that Catherine knew better than to ask about. But he returned every evening for Laurent's bedtime, appearing in her doorway like clockwork at 6:30, and he always stayed while she nursed. At first, the silence was awkward, but gradually he started talking. Small things at first, Laurent's milestones, the weather, improvements to the house, then deeper things. "My father built the hotel business," he said one evening, watching Laurent nurse. "Legitimate, clean, made something from nothing." He paused. "My mother brought the other side. Sicilian connections. By the time I was old enough to understand, I was too deep in both worlds to choose." "Did you want to choose?" His smile was bitter. "I wanted to be a chef, actually." Catherine laughed before she could stop herself. "A chef? Why's that funny?" But he was smiling now, real warmth in his eyes. "I make excellent jambalaya." "Prove it." The challenge hung between them, electric. "Tomorrow," he said, "I'll cook for you." He did. The next evening, Miss Odette was mysteriously absent, and Etienne took over the kitchen. Catherine sat at the island, Antoine on her hip, watching this crime lord dice vegetables with the precision of a surgeon. "Where'd you learn to cook?" "My grandmother." Cecilian sighed. She insisted all her grandchildren know how to feed themselves properly. He glanced over his shoulder. "She'd have liked you." "Why?" "Because you're strong." She had no patience for weak women. The jambalaya was incredible, perfectly spiced, rich, complex. The merleton melted in her mouth. The pralines were better than anything she'd had at the French market. "You could have been a chef," Catherine admitted, "but then I wouldn't have Laurent." He set down his fork, eyes intense. "Or you." The "or you" echoed in the sudden silence. Catherine's heart hammered. I should put Antoine to bed. She fled to her room, but his words followed her. Weeks passed, the routine continued, but something was shifting. Etienne started joining morning coffee, sitting at the table while she nursed Laurent, talking about everything and nothing. He played on the floor with both babies, making Antoine shriek with laughter, making Laurent coo and smile. Catherine caught herself watching him, the way his scarred hands were so gentle with the children, the way his whole face transformed when he smiled, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. "That man is falling in love with you," Aunt Celeste said one afternoon, cornering Catherine in the hallway. "Don't be ridiculous. This is business. Business don't look at you like you're water in the desert, Cher. He lost his child's mother. He's just grateful. Keep telling yourself that." Celeste shook her head. "But I've seen enough love in my life to recognize it. And that man? He's drowning in it." Saturday morning, Catherine decided to take both babies to Crescent City Farmers Market. She needed air, space, something normal. Etienne's security followed at a distance. She'd learned not to fight this, but tried to give her the illusion of freedom. She was comparing okra prices when a hand grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. "Look at you playing house with some rich man's baby." DeMarcus, Antoine's father, drunk at 10 in the morning, reeking of cheap whiskey and old resentment. "Let go of me." Catherine tried to pull away, conscious of both babies, Antoine strapped to her chest, Laurent in the stroller. "Where's my son?" DeMarcus yanked harder. "You keeping him from me? You gave up rights to call him that when you demanded I abort him." "That's my blood." A hand closed on DeMarcus's wrist, not rough, but absolute. "Remove your hand, now." Etienne. He'd appeared from nowhere, dressed casually in linen shirt and jeans, but radiating danger that made nearby shoppers step back. His voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded violence. DeMarcus paled, suddenly sober enough to recognize a predator. "Who the hell?" "The man who will break your arm if you touch her again." Etienne's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You have 3 seconds." DeMarcus released her like she was burning, stumbled backward. Etienne stepped between them, pulling Catherine and the babies behind him with one smooth motion. "You see her again, you cross the street. You speak to her, you lose your tongue, you touch her." The smile widened, showing teeth. "You don't want to know what I'll take then." DeMarcus ran. Security materialized. 2 men Catherine hadn't even noticed. "Boss, you want us to?" "No, he's not worth it." Etienne turned to Catherine, and the cold killer vanished, replaced by concern. "You okay?" She was shaking, adrenaline making her knees weak. "How did you know I was here?" "You're always followed, for situations exactly like this." "I'm not a prisoner." "No." His hands came up to her shoulders, steadying her. "You're protected. There's a difference." But the intensity in his eyes, the possessiveness in his touch, suggested it was much more than protection. And the terrifying part? She didn't want him to let go. Catherine couldn't sleep. Again, she'd been lying in her bed for 2 hours, listening to Antoine's soft breathing from the nursery, staring at the ceiling's ornate plasterwork illuminated by moonlight through the windows. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Etienne at the market, the cold precision of his threat, the protective fury in his eyes, the way his hands had felt on her shoulders. "You're protected." She threw off the covers and padded barefoot through the silent house, wearing only a thin cotton nightgown. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed twice. 2 in the morning, and she was wandering through a crime lord's mansion like she belonged here. Maybe she did. That was the terrifying part. She found him on the second-floor gallery, a dark silhouette against the garden lights. He stood at the railing, cigar glowing orange in the darkness, still dressed in his clothes from earlier. The smell of expensive tobacco mixed with jasmine from the courtyard below. Can't sleep either. Her voice cut through the night sounds, cicadas, distant traffic, the fountain's gentle splash. He didn't turn. Occupational hazard. Too many enemies to fully relax. Catherine moved to the railing beside him, leaving careful distance between them. The garden below was beautiful in the moonlight, manicured hedges, blooming magnolias, the fountain's water catching silver light. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "This life?" Every day, he took a long pull on the cigar, exhaled slowly. "Every time I look at Laurent and know what he'll inherit. This house, yes. The hotel business, fine. But the rest of it..." He gestured with the cigar, encompassing the armed security at the gates, the cameras she'd learned to ignore, the weight of violence that hung over everything. "He deserves better. He doesn't have to follow your path, doesn't he?" Etienne stubbed out the cigar in the ashtray beside him, the motion sharp, angry. "This world doesn't let you leave, Catherine. You're born into it or you're pulled in. Either way, it keeps you." His laugh was bitter. "Ask me how I know. Is that what happened to Laurent's mother?" The silence stretched so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw, stripped of its usual control. "Margot was an addict when I met her. Young, beautiful, already halfway destroyed. I thought I could save her, give her a reason to get clean." He gripped the railing. "She tried. God, she tried. Got through the pregnancy clean, gave birth to Laurent, stayed sober for 2 whole weeks. Then my enemies," his voice cracked, "they got to her. Gave her a hot shot, pure heroin, no cutting. Made it look like relapse, like she'd chosen drugs over her baby." "Oh, Etienne." Catherine's hand moved toward his before she could stop herself. "I killed them all." He said it matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather. "Every single person in the chain, from dealer to supplier to the boss who ordered it. Took me 4 months. Some of them died quickly. Some..." He finally looked at her, and what she saw in his eyes made her breath catch. "I'm not a good man, Catherine. You need to understand that." She should be afraid. Should run back to her safe, beautiful cage and lock the door. Instead, she moved closer. "You're good to Laurent. Good to Antoine. Good to me. Because you're mine to protect. I'm not yours. Aren't you?" He turned to face her fully, and suddenly the careful distance between them felt like nothing. "You live in my house, sleep in my bed. Well, a bed I provide. I clothe you, feed you, keep you safe. My son drinks from your body every day. How are you not mine?" She should argue, should assert her independence, her autonomy, all the things she'd fought for, her entire life. Instead, the question that came out was, "What does that make you? If I'm yours?" His hand moved to her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "Yours too, I suppose, whether either of us wants it." The air between them charged, electric. Catherine's heart hammered against her ribs. His thumb moved to her lower lip, and she felt the calluses there, evidence of violence and work and control. Catherine. Her name was a warning and a question. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, to say no, to run. She didn't. The kiss was inevitable, devastating. Soft at first, his lips barely brushing hers, testing, asking. Then, she made a sound low in her throat, and something broke in both of them. He kissed her like he was drowning, and she was air. His hands tangled in her hair, tilting her head back to deepen the kiss. She gripped his shirt, pulling him closer, months of tension and denial exploding between them. His tongue traced her lower lip, and she opened for him. The taste of him, cigars and whiskey, and something uniquely him, made her dizzy. His hands moved from her hair to her waist, pulling her flush against him, and she felt how much he wanted her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. "We can't," she whispered, even as her hands refused to release his shirt. "I know. This is too complicated. I know. Then why does it feel right?" "Because it is." He kissed her forehead, her temple, the corner of her mouth, soft touches that felt more intimate than the passionate kiss. "Go to bed, Catherine, before I do something we'll both regret." She forced herself to step back to release him. Her lips felt swollen, her body aching for more. "Etienne, go." His voice was rough. "Please." She went, but she didn't sleep. The next few days were torture. They avoided being alone together, their conversations stiffly polite when Miss Odette or Aunt Celeste were present, but the tension crackled between them like lightning before a storm. Every time he brought Laurent for feeding, their fingers brushed during the handoff, and Catherine felt electricity shoot up her arm. Every time they passed in the hallway, the air thickened, charged with everything unsaid. At dinner, she caught him staring, and when their eyes met, the heat in his gaze made her forget how to breathe. "You two are like gunpowder and spark," Aunt Celeste said, cornering Catherine in the kitchen while Miss Odette was occupied elsewhere. "Just give in already." "It's not that simple, Tante." "Why not? You care for him. He cares for you. Life's too short to waste it fighting what's right in front of you." "His world is dangerous. Living is dangerous." Celeste touched her face. "You think I don't see how you look at him, how he looks at you? That's real, Catherine. Don't throw it away out of fear." The hurricane warning came on Thursday. Tropical storm. Delphine had strengthened unexpectedly in the Gulf, now a Category 2 heading straight for New Orleans. By Thursday evening, the city was boarding up, and by midnight, the storm hit. The power went out around 1 a.m. Catherine jerked awake to total darkness and the sound of wind howling like a living thing. Rain hammered the windows. Somewhere in the house, something crashed. Antoine started crying. Then Laurent's wails joined him, carrying through the walls. Catherine fumbled for her phone's flashlight, grabbed Antoine from his crib. "Shh, baby, it's okay. Mama's here." Her door opened. Etienne stood there with a flashlight, Laurent screaming in his arms. His hair was disheveled, shirt unbuttoned, face etched with concern. "Generators not catching, whole systems down." He had to raise his voice over the storm. "This is the safest room. Interior walls, no windows on the outer wall. Miss Odette and your aunt are in the pantry. We should stay here with the babies." "Okay? Yes, come in." They worked together in the dim phone light and flashlight beam, creating a nest of blankets on Catherine's bed, positioning both babies between them. Laurent was inconsolable, terrified by the storm's violence. Antoine fed off his fear, both boys working themselves into hysterics. "Here," Catherine unbuttoned her nightgown, guided Laurent to nurse. The familiar comfort calmed him immediately. Etienne picked up Antoine, walking the perimeter of the room, bouncing gently, humming something low and soothing. The storm raged outside. The house creaked and groaned. But gradually, the babies settled. Laurent nursed himself into drowsy contentment. Antoine's cries faded to whimpers, then silence as Etienne's steady rhythm calmed him. They laid both babies on the bed, surrounded by pillows, deeply asleep despite the chaos outside. Catherine and Etienne stepped into the hallway, pulling the door mostly closed to muffle the storm's noise. Rain pounded the roof like drums. Somewhere, shutters banged rhythmically. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I couldn't have calmed them both alone." "Always." He turned to leave, and something in Catherine snapped. "Etienne, wait." He stopped, turned back. In the flashlight's glow, his face was all shadows and angles. "I can't stop thinking about you." The admission cost her everything. "I've tried, God, I've tried, but every day it gets worse. Every time you walk into a room, every time you hand me Lauren, every time you look at me." He was back to her in 3 strides, flashlight clattering to the floor. "Tell me to leave. Tell me you don't want this. I can't. Then I'm done fighting it." He kissed her against the wall, hard and desperate, months of denial exploding between them. She kissed back just as fiercely, her hands in his hair, his hands everywhere, her waist, her hips sliding under the thin fabric of her nightgown. "My room," he growled against her mouth. "The babies. Miss Odette has the monitor. They're safe." He led her down the hallway, past portraits of ancestors who'd lived in this house before the war, before everything. His room was at the end. She'd never been inside. The door closed behind them, and he pressed her against it, kissing her neck, her collarbone, the swell of her breasts visible above her nightgown. The room was massive, four-poster bed, masculine decor in deep colors, French doors that rattled with wind. Lightning flashed, illuminating them in stark relief. They barely made it to the bed. Clothes shed frantically, his shirt, her nightgown, his pants. When he laid her back on the silk sheets, she felt the length of him against her, hot and hard and perfect. "Tell me you want this," he said, hovering over her, his control hanging by a thread. "Tell me, Catherine." "I want this," she pulled him down. "I want you." Their lovemaking was intense, almost angry, months of tension and denial finding release. Afterward, they lay tangled together, sweaty and breathless, while the storm raged outside. "I love you," he said simply, his finger tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "I've been in love with you since you sang to my son that first night." "This is insane," she whispered. "Yes. Your world is dangerous. Yes. I could lose you any day. Yes." He tilted her face up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "But tonight I'm here. Tomorrow I'll still be here. And I'll fight like hell to be here every day after that." The words broke something open in her chest. "I love you too. God help me. I love you." He kissed her again, slower this time, tender. "Then we'll figure out the rest together." Outside, the hurricane howled. Inside, wrapped in each other's arms, they'd found shelter. Morning came with sunlight streaming through Etienne's bedroom windows. Catherine woke slowly, wrapped in silk sheets that cost more than her old car, her body deliciously sore. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she felt the warm weight of his arm across her waist, his breath steady against her neck, and remembered everything. She turned in his arms. He was already awake, watching her with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Regrets?" "None," she kissed him softly. "You?" "Not a single one." His hand splayed across her lower back, pulling her closer. "Though we should probably check on the babies before Miss Odette sends a search party." They found both boys still asleep in Catherine's bed, peaceful and safe. Miss Odette was already up, humming in the kitchen, the storm damage being assessed by the grounds crew. When she saw them emerge together, Etienne's shirt wrinkled, Catherine's nightgown hastily thrown back on, the older woman's face broke into a knowing smile. "About time," was all she said, pouring coffee. "Breakfast in 30 minutes, and Mr. Rousseau, your bedroom or hers for moving Miss Catherine's things?" Etienne didn't hesitate. "Mine?" That afternoon, while he was on a business call, Miss Odette and Aunt Celeste helped Catherine transfer her belongings to the master suite. Not that she had much. Her clothes fit in 2 drawers, her toiletries claimed one corner of his massive bathroom. But seeing her things mixed with his felt significant, permanent. "You sure about this, Cher?" Celeste asked, folding one of Catherine's few nice dresses into the closet that was larger than her old bedroom. "No," Catherine laughed shakily, "but I'm doing it anyway." "Good." Her aunt pulled her into a hug. "That man loves you something fierce. I see it every time he looks at you. Just like your mama and papa before Katrina took them." Tears pricked Catherine's eyes. "You think they'd approve?" "I think they'd want you happy. And you are, aren't you?" Terrified, but yes. The outside world was less accepting. 2 weeks after the hurricane, Catherine accompanied Etienne to a business dinner at Commander's Palace. She wore a dress he'd bought her, deep emerald silk that made her skin glow, and felt every eye in the restaurant track them as they were seated. The whispers started immediately. She caught fragments. "Cleaning woman," "gold digger," "how long before he's bored." Etienne's hand found hers under the table, squeezed. "Ignore them." "Hard to ignore when they're so loud. They're jealous. You're beautiful, intelligent, and you have something they'll never have, me actually giving a damn." He lifted her hand, kissed her knuckles. "Let them talk." But it bothered her more than she wanted to admit. At the hotel, staff treated her differently now, some with newfound respect, others with barely concealed contempt. Women who'd been friendly when she was cleaning their rooms now looked through her like she was invisible. She was between worlds, belonging fully to neither. The threat came on a Tuesday. Catherine was playing with both babies in the garden when Etienne strode out, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. His face was granite, his movements sharp. When he ended the call, he immediately made another. Dominic, triple the security detail, now. He looked at Catherine. Inside, both boys, now. Her stomach dropped. What's wrong? Inside first, then I'll explain. Within an hour, the estate was transformed into a fortress. Armed men materialized at every entrance. The gates were reinforced. A second vehicle appeared, armored, windows bulletproof, to replace the Mercedes. Catherine found Etienne in his office, studying security camera feeds with Dominic. Tell me what's happening. He didn't look away from the screens. Vincent Santini runs the Italian faction out of Maid. He's planning to grab you. The floor tilted. Grab me? Why? Because you're mine. Because he thinks you're my weakness. His jaw tightened. He's not entirely wrong. So what do? You stay here. You don't leave without me or a minimum of 4 guards. You don't. I can't live like this. Panic clawed up her throat. I can't be a prisoner in this house. You have to, just until I handle Santini. Handle? She stepped closer, forcing him to look at her. You mean kill? Yes. No apology in his voice, no hesitation. He's threatened what's mine. There has to be another way. Can't you negotiate? Pay him off? Something that doesn't end in more death? There is no other way in this world. He stood, moving to the window. This is what I tried to tell you that night on the gallery. My world doesn't allow for peaceful solutions. Santini wants war. I'll give him extinction before I risk you. They argued for an hour, about violence, morality, the cost of his life and choices. She demanded he find another way. He insisted no other way existed. They went to bed angry, sleeping on opposite sides of the mattress, the distance between them measured in more than inches. The abduction happened 4 days later. Catherine had pushed for normalcy, for one trip to the pediatrician with Antoine. Just 1 hour of regular life. Etienne had reluctantly agreed, tripling the security detail, insisting on the armored car. The pediatrician's parking lot seemed safe, broad daylight, busy with other parents. Catherine's guards were vigilant, eyes constantly scanning. She'd just strapped Antoine into his car seat when tires squealed. A delivery truck jackknifed across the parking lot exit. Guards immediately moved toward the distraction, speaking rapidly into radios. In that split second, 3 men appeared from nowhere. One grabbed Catherine. She fought, bit his hand until she tasted blood, scratched at his eyes, screamed for help. But he was professional, efficient. A cloth pressed over her mouth and nose, chemical sweet smell flooding her lungs. The world went gray, then black. Catherine woke to concrete floor and zip-tied wrists. Her head pounded, mouth dry as cotton. Panic hit first, then maternal instinct. "Antoine!" Her voice cracked. "He's here!" She blinked until her vision cleared. Warehouse, empty except for a few chairs and a car seat. Antoine was in the car seat 15 feet away, crying but unharmed. Between them stood a man in his 60s, silver hair, expensive suit, face that belonged in a boardroom, not a warehouse. Vincent Santini. "Nothing personal, Ms. Baptiste." His voice was cultured, almost kind. "Just business. Rousseau took something from me. I take something from him." Catherine's mind raced, looking for escapes, weapons, anything. "Please, let my son go. He's innocent. He has nothing to do with this." "So is my nephew. Rousseau killed him anyway." Santini lit a cigarette. 22 years old, shot him in the head over a shipment dispute. "So yes, your son is innocent. But so was mine." "I'm sorry about your nephew, but killing us won't bring him back." "No, but it'll hurt Rousseau, and right now, that's enough." Catherine worked at the zip ties, remembering something she'd seen once about twisting and pulling. The plastic cut into her wrists, but she felt it give slightly. "He'll come for me," she said, keeping Santini talking. "You know he will." "I'm counting on it," Santini smiled. "That's the point." Etienne arrived 37 minutes later. Catherine heard the vehicles first, multiple engines, men shouting. Then gunfire, sharp cracks that echoed off warehouse walls. Antoine's crying intensified. The warehouse door exploded inward. Etienne walked through like an avenging angel, flanked by armed men who fanned out with military precision. He was dressed in all black, gun in hand, face absolutely blank. That blankness was more terrifying than rage. "Let her go." His voice was calm, conversational. "Your fight is with." Etienne's knife flew before Catherine could blink. One moment it was in his hand, the next it was in Santini. The gun clattered away. Santini's grip loosened. As he dropped, Catherine lunged for Antoine, scooping up the car seat with zip-tied hands. Gunfire erupted, Etienne's men eliminating Santini's remaining guards with brutal efficiency. Then, silence. Etienne reached her in 3 strides, hands running over her frantically. "Are you hurt? Did he touch you? Is Antoine?" "We're okay." Her voice shook. Scared, but okay. He pulled them both into his arms, her in Antoine's car seat, holding them so tightly she could barely breathe. His whole body trembled. "I thought I lost you," his voice cracked. "God, Catherine, I thought I was too late." "You weren't. We're safe. You got us." "Because of luck. If they'd moved faster, if the tracker hadn't worked—" He pulled back, cupping her face with blood-stained hands. "I can't survive losing you, you understand? I physically cannot survive it." She kissed him, tasting salt, his tears or hers, she didn't know. "I'm here. We're here." Dominic approached quietly. "Boss, we need to move. Police response time is 5 minutes, I know." Etienne cut Antoine's car seat free from Catherine's grip, then sliced through her zip ties. "Can you walk?" She nodded, though her legs felt like water. The days after were dark. Etienne was different, colder to everyone except her and the boys. He disappeared for hours at a time, returning with fresh bruises on his knuckles, blood on his clothes. Catherine knew better than to ask during those times. But on the 5th night, she found him in his office at 2 a.m., sitting in darkness, fresh blood on his hands. "What did you do?" She turned on a lamp. His eyes were empty. "Removed anyone connected to Santini. Every soldier, every associate, every distant cousin who might want revenge." His voice was flat, emotionless. "They wanted war. I gave them extinction." "Etienne, don't." He held up one hand, blood crusting under his nails. "Don't tell me it was too much. Don't tell me I went too far. They took you. They put a gun to your head. They made my son cry in fear. There is no too far for that." She crossed to him, taking his bloody hands in hers. "I wasn't going to say that." "No? No." She knelt before him, meeting his devastated eyes. "I was going to say, thank you for protecting us. And I'm sorry you had to do it. I'm sorry my being in your life forced you to become this." He broke then. This man who'd killed dozens without hesitation, who commanded an empire built on fear. He broke. Pulled her into his lap and buried his face in her neck, his whole body shaking with silent sobs. "I can't lose you," he whispered against her skin. "You and the boys are everything. Without you, I'm just a monster. Just death and violence and nothing else." "You're not a monster." She held him tighter. "You're a father, a protector, the man I love, the man who saved our lives." They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other while the darkness of his world pressed in around them. When he finally lifted his head, his eyes were red but clear. "Marry me," he said. She blinked. "What?" "Marry me. Make it official, legal, permanent. Let everyone know you're mine and I'm yours, that anyone who touches you answers to me." His hands framed her face. "I need you to be my wife, Catherine. I need that protection over you, that claim no one can dispute." She should have asked for time, for space to think, should have considered all the complications. Instead, she said, "Yes." "Park at sunset." "Where are we going?" she asked as the car pulled through gates that should have been closed. "Somewhere special." His smile was secretive, boyish in a way that made her heart flutter. The peristyle appeared before them, classical columns rising from the lagoon, reflected in water turned gold by the dying sun. String quartet musicians sat arranged in a semicircle, already playing. The haunting melody of a Creole waltz floated across the water. "Etienne, what is this?" Something I should have done properly. He helped her from the car, and she realized they were completely alone. He'd rented the entire area, guards positioned at discreet distances, the public kept away, just them and the music and the sunset. He led her to the center of the peristyle. The quartet transitioned into something slower, sweeter. Then Etienne knelt on the marble, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket. Catherine's breath caught. "Catherine Baptiste." His voice was steady, but his hands trembled as he opened the box. Inside, an emerald, her birthstone, surrounded by diamonds that caught the fading light. You saved my son's life that night at the hotel. But more than that, you saved mine. You made me remember what it means to love, to hope, to want something beyond survival. Tears already blurred her vision. I know my world is dark. I know loving me is dangerous. But I swear on everything holy. His voice cracked. I will spend every day earning your trust, protecting your heart, and giving you and our sons the best life I can build. Marry me, please. Be my wife. Yes. The word came out broken, joyful. God, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit like it had been waiting for her. Then he stood, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her while the quartet played and the sun painted the sky in shades of fire. I want to do this right, he said against her lips. Big wedding, both our traditions. Announce you to everyone as my wife. I don't need big. I do. His arms tightened around her. I need everyone to know you're mine, legally, spiritually, irrevocably mine. No one will ever question your place beside me again. She kissed him again, tasting salt, his tears or hers, impossible to tell. Then let's do it right. 6 weeks of planning transformed the Garden District estate into organized chaos. Aunt Celeste took charge of the Haitian voodoo elements, consulting with Hungans, arranging for proper ritual components, ensuring the LWA would bless their union. Miss Odette handled the Creole Catholic traditions with military precision. Priest, flowers, menu, guest list vetted by both her and Dominic. Security for 200 guests, Dominic reported one evening, spreading blueprints across Etienne's desk. Snipers here, here, and here. Metal detectors at entrance, background checks complete on everyone except your cousin from Houston. Drop him from the list, Catherine said. We barely talk anyway. Etienne looked at her. You sure? I'm sure. I want people there who actually want us happy, not people coming out of obligation or curiosity. The final guest list was intimate. Etienne's trusted inner circle, Catherine's small family, a few friends who'd stood by her. Everyone else could read about it in the society pages. The dress fittings were surreal. Catherine stood in a bridal boutique on Magazine Street, surrounded by silk and lace, while a seamstress pinned white fabric that cost more than a semester at Delgado. 3 dresses? She'd protested. That's excessive. Non cher, Miss Odette had insisted. White for the Catholic ceremony, traditional Haitian for the Vodou blessing, then Creole style for the reception. You're honoring all your traditions. That's important. Looking at herself in the white gown, simple, elegant, perfect, Catherine felt tears prick her eyes. She looked like a bride, like someone worthy of the life Etienne was giving her. Beautiful, Aunt Celeste breathed. Your maman would be so proud. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather. Clear sky, gentle breeze, temperature in the low 70s. The historic estate in Uptown had been transformed, moss-draped oaks strung with lights, white chairs arranged in perfect rows, flowers everywhere. Catherine stood in the bridal suite, hands shaking as Miss Odette adjusted her veil. Breathe, Cher, the older woman said. He's not going anywhere. That man would wait a lifetime for you. I know. I'm just... She pressed a hand to her stomach. What if I trip? What if Antoine cries during the ceremony? What if you just enjoy marrying the man you love? Aunt Celeste appeared behind her, resplendent in deep purple. The details don't matter. Just him, just you, just the vows. Music started outside. Classical guitar, the signal. That's us. Catherine took a deep breath, lifted her bouquet of magnolias and white roses. Let's go get married. The gardens had been transformed into something from a dream. 200 people stood as she appeared at the top of the aisle, but Catherine only saw one. Etienne stood beneath an arch of flowers and Spanish moss, wearing a white linen suit that made him look like an angel who'd seen too much darkness. His face was already wet with tears, his expression one of absolute awe. Laurent and Antoine, carried by Miss Odette and Dominic, served as tiny ring-bearers in matching suits, both boys clutching silk pillows with rings tied on. Catherine walked down the aisle on her aunt's arm, and with each step, her certainty grew. This was right. This was home. This man, this life, this unexpected forever. When she reached him, Etienne took her hands, his voice thick. "You're so beautiful." "So are you," she whispered back. The priest began, but Catherine barely heard the traditional words. She was lost in Etienne's eyes, in the weight of what they were promising. Then came the vows, their own words, not the church's. Etienne spoke first, his voice carrying across the garden. "I was dead before you, a ghost walking through violence, empty of everything except rage and duty. You resurrected me with your compassion, your strength, your love. You showed me that even in darkness, light can exist, that even monsters can be redeemed by the right woman." His voice broke. "I vow to protect you, honor you, and love you until my last breath. You are my light in the darkness, my redemption, my everything." Catherine's tears flowed freely now. "I fought loving you. It terrified me. Your world, your violence, the danger that follows you everywhere. But you showed me that love is braver than fear. You proved that monster and man can coexist, that darkness can protect as well as destroy. I vow to stand beside you, to be your safe harbor, to love you through every storm, every battle, every moment of doubt." She squeezed his hands. "You are my unexpected forever. The wrong baby led me to the right man." Laughter rippled through the guests. Even the priest smiled. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Etienne kissed her before the priest finished speaking, pulling her into his arms like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning. The guests erupted in applause. The Vodou blessing followed immediately. Aunt Celeste stepped forward, drawing the Veva symbols in cornmeal, calling on Erzuli Freda for love, Papa Legba for protection. She bound their wrists with red ribbon, chanting in Creole, asking the LWA to guard their union, grant them fertility, keep them safe. When it was done, Celeste kissed both their cheeks. "You're bound now, not just by law or church, but by the spirits themselves. Nothing will break what's been tied today." The reception exploded with joy. A jazz band played everything from traditional New Orleans standards to Haitian compass. The food, Creole étouffée and Haitian griot and gumbo and pickles, filled tables that groaned under the weight. Catherine changed into her Creole-style gown, champagne silk with off-shoulder sleeves, a nod to both cultures. When she returned, Etienne's jaw dropped. "How do you keep getting more beautiful?" "Magic," she said, pulling him onto the dance floor. Their first dance was to "At Last" by Etta James. He held her close, swaying gently, his lips against her temple. "My wife," he whispered, testing the word. "My husband." She pulled back to look at him. "My love, my home." They danced until dawn, surrounded by family and friends in the life they'd built from one moment of compassion, one hungry baby, one impossible bond. And when the last guest finally left and they returned to the Garden District estate, Etienne carried her over the threshold like she weighed nothing, Laurent and Antoine already asleep in Miss Odette's care. "I love you," he said, laying her on their bed. "My wife, my Catherine." "I love you," she answered, pulling him down. "My Etienne, my forever." Outside, New Orleans slept. Inside, they celebrated their union the way married people do, with passion and tenderness and the absolute certainty that whatever darkness came next, they'd face it together.